Oh look, it's yet another Doctor Who fan giving a positive review about the story that everybody loves.
You're joking. Not another one?
Yes, it's Love and Monsters. Okay guys, you're watching this video for Genesis of the Daleks, a story which has been praised since the dawn of time. Except that's impossible because this aired in 1975. This was Tom Baker's fourth story as the Fourth Doctor. Fourth! Ha! Fourth as fourth. You know, I've only just literally realised that. This is definitely not in the script, I swear. Yeah, this was the Fourth Doctor's fourth story, and I have to be honest, all the hype for this is right. Some say that this is overrated, but I have to disagree. Genesis is certainly a strong contender for the best story from Tom Baker's era, and probably the best story ever. I mean, there's a sticker on the DVD which suggests so. What more could you ask for? Bear in mind, this is my favourite Doctor, so that elevates this even further. Genesis of the Daleks just topples so many other Doctor Who stories due to the realisation that the whole Dalek formula was becoming so tired, and here it feels refreshing. Before they were tumbling all over the place and getting destroyed by some fucking shit snake thing, and don't get me wrong, those stories were fun in their own right, but the Daleks were becoming a bit pathetic. That's when the producers thought, okay, now it's time to put things right. This is the origin story of the war between the Thals and the Kaleds. We learn about how we end up with the iconic tanks that we first saw back in the very first Dalek story in 1963. We get Thals who don't look stupid for a change. We even get more world building with Skaro, with the inclusion of the Mutos, who are mutated exiles from both sides of the war. Terry Nation gave us so much symbolism here, reminding us that these creatures were based on the Nazis. We see a minefield, gas masks, people dressed as Nazis, and a fucking maniac in charge of it all. Enter Davros, the real star of this story, played here by Michael Wisher. His performance as the Dalek Curator is timeless. Davros' debut is enough of a reason to watch this masterpiece. The line delivery is some of the best in all of Doctor Who, and I don't think there's a better story that's featured him since.
You will tell me! You will tell me! You will tell me!
And don't get me wrong, Davros has featured in some pretty good stories after this, but this is Genesis of the Daleks. In some moments he shouts out in that familiar tone which would pass on to his creations, and then we have the more subtle moments. This is where the story shines. The interplay between this S-tier villain and Tom Baker's Fourth Doctor elevates this story to another level. It is dynamite. Absolute dynamite. Speaking of dynamite, this story even begins with explosive mines as the Doctor, Sarah and Harry are in the middle of a battlefield on Skaro. The Doctor steps on a mine and it is really tense stuff. That's the thing with this story. For about 90% of the time, everything is tense, tense, tense. Our characters are at peril all the way through. This is such a good script. There are not many other characters in this that can be trusted. Early on, our heroes are separated. The Doctor and Harry get captured by Kaleds, and in case you didn't know who the Kaleds were, they are basically the Dalek ancestors. Hence why the word Kaled is an anagram of Dalek.
And if you don't believe that, you can fuck off and get your cards.
Sarah is left behind before she ends up with the Mutos, before they are captured by the Thals and forced into labour to help them in their war efforts against the Kaleds. You have people like Ronson, this Nazi, and the biggest snitch of them all, Nyder.
You bastard!
Nyder, played by Peter Miles, is one of the best henchmen in all of Doctor Who, if not the best. He is just a snake. He double crosses people at every chance he gets. He's a character you love to hate. On previous viewings, one of the aspects of this story which I was critical of was the lack of Daleks, because this is supposed to be a Dalek story. It has the name of the title after all. I can see why some will say, "Oh, is that it then?" when they realise that there's a lack of Dalek action here. They are hardly in this, and this is one of those dreaded six-parters as well. Alas, the more I watch this, the more I realise that one of the greatest strengths of Genesis of the Daleks is because the Daleks are hardly in it. What? You see, when you put into perspective what I said before about how the Dalek formula was beginning to stagnate in the 1970s, Terry Nation provided us with a breath of fresh air by finally giving us the beginnings of these creatures. We went back to Skaro, which on the outside looks like yet another fucking quarry. The wars which were spoken about in the very first Dalek story are taking place right in front of your eyes here. There's no gimmicks here. It was literal back to basics stuff here. Here is a mad scientist, and here is how you get the Daleks. Sounds so simple, yet the execution is sublime. So much so, every time the Daleks do appear, it is edge of your seat stuff. They do have a great presence here. If you have followed the narrative, you know that they go on to conquer millions of species and wipe out civilizations by exterminating them all. This is history in the making in the Doctor Who universe. This is how it starts. One man, Davros, and one idea, total extermination. Gratifying to Davros in his primary course to win the war with the Thals. Terrifying for the Doctor, who has seen countless lives lost as he has seen what they later become. And this brings us to the most fundamental reason as to why the main characters ended up here. The Doctor was sent back in time by the Time Lords to avert the creation of the Daleks. It's only really highlighted in parts 1 and 6 that the Doctor is actually on a mission. This isn't one of those when the Doctor decides, "Oh hey ho, let's go to another fucking quarry." No, it's against his own free will. What makes Genesis of the Daleks so captivating is not just the themes of time travel, war, or Dalek origins. It is a morality tale. When the Doctor has the opportunity to avert Dalek existence, this could be a huge turning point, but then he questions this in what is undoubtedly one of the greatest scenes ever in Doctor Who.
Do I have the right?
Earlier on, we saw Davros being given the hypothesis by the Doctor on whether he would be right to have the power to end all life, as Davros proclaimed that he would do that through the Daleks.
And through the Daleks I shall have that power!
Chilling stuff. To contrast, the Doctor ultimately does not touch the two strands of wire together, thus giving us more time with the giant pepper pots of Skaro and failing his mission set by the Time Lords. I always like to assume that the Time Lords' attempt at getting rid of the Daleks here was something which preempted the Time War many, many years later. The end of the story is delightful, as the Daleks overpower the Curator and kill him along with the other scientists, and neither gets his comeuppance. The Doctor, Sarah and Harry leave using the weird time ring, and thus concludes the masterpiece that is Genesis of the Daleks. If you want to call yourself a Doctor Who fan, then watch Genesis of the Daleks. I have gone on enough now in this video, and many others for that matter, about how this exemplifies what the Dalek threat is. As I said earlier, it is a moment in history which still bears a great significance on the show even today. Genesis leads by example on what great Doctor Who should be. You have a charismatic Doctor put in one of the most deadly situations they've ever been in. You have Sarah and Harry just being great as ever. You have a great supporting cast across all 6 parts, with the standout easily being Michael Wish's turn as Davros. And then you have all the underlying themes, along with what this story set out to do in the first place. Give us the definitive origin story from the most evil villains in all of sci-fi. If I was to nitpick though, and I mean really, really nitpick, then I would say there are a very, very few moments which we could have done without. Sarah Jane falls off some scaffolding in one of the cliffhangers, but in reality, it wasn't all that far. Harry, yet again, feels like a spare part in this, but Ian Marter was always great at this character. It's a shame that this companion wasn't given more time to shine in the show. We get a bit of exposition with Davros' experiments, and then we get...
What is that? What the fuck is that?
Fucking seriously. Why? Like, I know it doesn't ruin this by any means, but we could have done without. The question which may be on people's lips right now, though, is, do I consider Genesis of the Daleks the greatest story of all time? Well, no. I told you at the beginning, it's Love and Monsters all the way. Nah, just messing with you. It's definitely one of my top 3.